So now they're
Scared the
sending
crap
all
out
kinds
of them.
and it was even after D-Day, after the invasion at Normandy, the Germans still couldn't believe. They thought that was just a feint. That was just a fictitious invasion, that the real invasion was going to come into Calais, and, Patton was going to be leading the charge.
So you pulled off D-Day, and then you're still scared of what this guy's going to do.
Right.
Mike Harrington has a Cheshire Cat grin on right now.
Well, didn't they use a magician for that?
Magician, I don't know about, but
For the inflatable army.
Honest to God, nothing's out of the realm of possibility with that one, because they were just like, what disinformation can we throw in there to make sure that we just get these guys off their. They were a little too cocky. The Germans were cocky, and you had to sit there and take away their confidence. So a magician might do that.
I will look into this because I'm convinced there was a magician who knew like mirrors and painting tricks to make it look like they had thousands of tanks parked at one spot, and it was like 2 tanks.
Yeah, they had the group that Patton was really put in charge of was only like 2,000 guys, but they were posing as like thousands upon thousands of guys, and they had Hollywood set producers that they were making up these false
Back
sets.
when
They
Hollywood
had
liked
rubber
America.
tanks, and they had a false landing or port. They had all kinds of stuff, and they were constantly moving it around, thinking that it's all over England as their jump-off point for the eventual invasion, and it was just a bunch of bullcrap. But yeah, they had set designers and all kinds of things happening that were really just Hollywood make-believe.
We pulled it off on that, and again, put Patton
Kind
in
of like
charge.
a green screen with
A green screen and a fake bar
that
that we're
you're
not in.
sitting yeah, that kind of a thing.
Well, the Times needed a man with Patton's abilities, and just like a Jersey state trooper that has pulled over a clearly intoxicated Lawrence Taylor with several hookers and coke in his car, Ike Eisenhower had to look the other way and get his warrior general back to the business of making Hitler lose sleep at night. So Patton had made many political enemies, but he had no political ambition, so it didn't matter to him as long as he had a war to fight, which is where his downfall kind of comes in. His war in Europe ends on May 8th, 1945, which is VE Day, as in Victory in Europe Day, which is not to be confused with VD Day, which is Venereal Disease Day, which is celebrated every Memorial Day weekend in Seaside Heights. VE Day means the war in Europe is over. Hitler killed himself on April 30th, and Patton now realizes he's nearing the end of his military career. He starts to showcase some strange emotions. Patton openly felt that now that Europe was won, his only true purpose in life is to head over to Japan. But he was quoted as, this is a pretty good quote. Patton is a good quote anytime you need him. I think that's why I compared him to Parcells. They both had that no bullshit attitude, He goes, well, they already have a star over there, meaning General MacArthur, and there's only one star in the big show. So literally that's what he thought of war. He goes, the big show, I'm coming up, It's
the big game.
Well, Patton tried like hell to get involved with the Pacific Theater, but unlike his own lack of political ambitions, a lot of generals, some at the front and some back home, had already begun preparing for their next career steps after the war. And Eisenhower, by the way, just for reference, Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, there's that great joke that the Americans and the Brits would play on each other. Remember the good quote about, when I tell you the opening joke, you say the punchline. You'll remember this when I say it. When the Americans were training for D-Day in England rather, the British troops would say, the problem with you
Americans,
the
Yanks,
is that you're oversexed.
No, they were overpaid,
oversexed,
and over here.
And over here. He goes, that's it. So, and then the American response to that was, the problem with you Brits is that you're underpaid, undersexed, and under Eisenhower. Which is a pretty great joke.
Yeah, and then your thing about a lot of these generals are now preparing for their next career move, which is probably going to go into politics. 3 days after VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, Eisenhower called all his major generals together and said, hey, listen, we're not going to make any public announcements about different things that happened during the war, that this guy misstepped here, this guy should have done this guy was an asshole with this particular move, that everybody's going to keep mum on what their opinions might have been, what other guys should have done or might have done. And George Patton didn't quite follow those
No.
rules that Eisenhower was putting forth. So
He's got again. He's here to fight wars, and one war ended. He's trying to get himself into Japan, and they're not letting him do it. And by the way, just give a little bit of a timeline on this one, Eisenhower is legitimately the president of the United States less than 10 years after the war ends. So his moves now are 10 years, prior to what is eventually going to be him becoming, the president of the United States. So Patton pressed heavy to get assigned to the Pacific, but the orders never come through. Logistics are cited as the reason, but politics played super heavy into it. Patton knew this, but came back home to the U.S. hoping for one more war to fight. He's given speeches. He's honored with mass crowds. He's a celebrity. Huge parades, but he also managed to piss off a couple of Gold Star mothers saying, well, the wounded are the heroes. The dead, I find, are frequently fools. Yeah, not quite the...
not what a grieving mother wants to hear, that your son was a fool for getting killed.
Yeah, there's a wounded guy over there who's way smarter than your dumb son that just died. So, yeah, a little bit of a rough one on that. So, Patton is definitely still a celebrity on Aura alone, but I'm sure if he had been assigned a media relations specialist back then, they would have worked. It's kind of like having Kanye West's agent, like, hey, let's do damage control. Delete his Twitter. Patton does not get to fight in the Pacific. He's very upset at the news of VJ Day, which is the official end to the war, and he's quoted as saying, yet another war has ended, and with it, my usefulness to the world.
He had a one-track mind that he's here as a warrior, and he's here to fight and to win for the United States. And
it's like when Skankfest finally ends, if it ever does, I hope it never does, but if the final Skankfest happens, they should just have a picture of Lewis with a tear running down his cheek